Robby, what's on your radar?
Well, 2 months after it first scrapped the Disinformation Governance Board, the Department of Homeland Security now admits that there is, quote, no need for the board at all. A DHS advisory subcommittee made the declaration on Monday, according to the Washington Post. Previously, the board had technically just been paused. So this is according to WAPO, I'm quoting here. Michael Chertoff, co-chair of the council subcommittee that drafted the recommendation and a former DHS secretary, did not explain the panel's reasoning before the broader council voted to approve the recommendation Monday. He said the subcommittee is working on a full report on disinformation due August 3rd. There is, quote, no room for a separate disinformation governance board, said Chertoff, a former Bush staffer. Now, this meeting was only open to the public for audio, so it's not clear everyone who participated in it. The motion was approved by voice vote only. That was it, the formal end of the Disinformation Board right there. So in case anybody needs a refresher, this Disinfo board was first announced back in April. We covered it a lot on the show. It was rolled out in a very confusing fashion. In fact, the public found out about it before it was even announced, which made it seem secretive and creepy, like it was being kept from us. Then DHS officials tried to assure the public that the board was so benign it really didn't have much authority at all, which made everyone wonder why it was necessary then. So here's a previous radar I did discussing the topic. Now, DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas tried and largely failed to address these concerns by noting that the board would serve in merely an advisory capacity, not have any actual power to police speech, so he said. That the Disinformation Governance Board did a bad job of communicating information about itself did not exactly instill confidence, and evidently DHS has now realized that the entire project was a bad idea. So the Disinformation Board mostly attracted scrutiny from conservatives, some civil libertarians, due to concerns that its director, Nina Jankowicz, was a progressive ideologue with a poor track record of identifying misinformation. She had fallen for narratives that had hoodwinked other liberals, including the false notion that the New York Post Hunter Biden laptop story was a hoax of Russian origin. Now, federal law enforcement officials played a prominent role in providing cover for the false notion. 50 of them signed a letter asserting the story was Russian disinformation, which provided the mainstream media and social media companies with intellectual cover to suppress the story. So there's good reason to worry that Jankowicz's Disinformation Board, they could have done the same thing had that board been running at the time of the Hunter Biden laptop story, if it was running during a future story of that caliber. So given all that, DHS's decision to affirm the board's demise seems wise. If even the federal Homeland Security bureaucracy, which still requires airline passengers to remove their shoes and belts before boarding a plane for no legitimate safety-connected reason whatsoever, if even they think a program, agency, or protocol is pointless, you can bet that it's really, really pointless. Because they don't like to relax things that to all of the public seem completely unnecessary. Like, no, we're going to keep that going for 20 years, as in the case of TSA. So the fact that they said it was pointless, it means one of two things. Again, it was really pointless, or I guess they were just so taken with the blowback that they were like, fine, yeah, we didn't need this anyway. But they don't usually, like, they're pretty immune from blowback in general. You know, we're getting into the depths of the safety bureaucracy. They don't care how much you hate what they're doing generally. Mm-hmm. So it has to have really been an unnecessary idea. So this is going to go down as like just a train wreck from beginning to end, that they screwed up how people found out about it and then were like, what the hell is this? Right. The person they put in charge of it was, for lack of a better word, a very obnoxious kind of resistance liberal type person with a very one-sided. And I'm sure she's an expert on a lot of things. I'm not saying she's like the worst person on earth or anything, but you know, a check for some of these issues is, well, you know, how did you react when a story that, you know, didn't play to your or confirmed your kind of your biases? Right. How did you react? Did you have any scrutiny or skepticism? And she was lockstep with the rest of the officials, the intelligence officials, whose insistence that it was a lie, the Hunter Biden story, permitted then the media and social media to behave that way. Yeah. So that was what I thought was the really legitimate criticism of her, and she was never asked to reckon with that. She was never asked to say, you know, if she had said that was a huge mistake, I've learned from that, and I'm going to be a lot more careful about pronouncing things like that. But it was never, that never happened.
And if you notice, the most clever of the deep state folks who like signed that letter saying that this has to quote all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation, is that what they will say is that we never said it was wrong. And we never said it was untrue. Might be true, might not be true. What we're saying is that Russia might be pushing this, might have gotten the laptop, or might be helping Rudy, might have gotten it to Rudy somehow, and that they are pushing this. And to them, and this is also a collision of a study of disinformation with what regular people understand to be disinformation. And so disinformation, it sounds strange, doesn't have to be untrue.
Right.
Like you can look it up.
Right.
Look it up. Disinformation can be true information that is taken out of context and pushed
for nefarious purposes.
For nefarious purposes, and that is any purpose that Russia is supportive of. Like that would be how DHS would describe it. And so it's absolutely, and also separately, it's 100% true that Russia, the United States, other governments monkey around in the politics of other countries by pushing propaganda and by what we're renaming somewhat disinformation. And so that has been a central focus of DHS, is countering this Russian disinformation, which they were pushing in the French election. They push it in all of these different, and oftentimes it's true. Like they'll hack emails in France. That doesn't mean that what they got isn't untrue, but it's still they still call it disinformation, which is very confusing. Wait a minute. But it's true information.
Well, this whole category of expertise and to the extent it blends into now it's a beat for many journalists. I know many of them on the disinformation beat at mainstream outlets. Actually, I just saw NPR announced this week that they're adding a disinformation team, a team of journalists who specializes in identifying disinformation. But it's just like you said, that readers would come away thinking it's kind of it's
false information.
False information. It's a fact checking, something like that. But this whole beat is getting very weird, because then these people have a language unto themselves, a language about interference and malfeasance and looking at the motives of the people spreading various things, which that's all fine to do, but then it ends up casting aspersions on the information itself. And then, especially then when social media operates from that information, says, yeah, we're shutting down these conversations, we're not letting you read these things because they're false. But it's not false. That's not that's not the issue here.
Right.
It's consider the source, but not false.
Right, and those same types would say that the Podesta hack was, and if you can put it at the feet of the Russians, that was Russian disinformation, but all true.
But all true.
Like Podesta's confirmed, like those were his emails. Those were the actual excerpts of the Goldman Sachs speeches.
Right.
And so once you're calling that disinformation, you've kind of lost the game, because people recognize what's happening here. Now you're being told that this thing is true, but you shouldn't talk about it. Well, that's weird. Like, if it's true, we should be able to talk about it. Look, maybe Russia has nefarious purposes for exposing exposing the transcript of the Goldman Sachs speeches. We still want to read the Goldman Sachs speeches.
Right.
And media organizations, up until very recently, have agreed with that principle, that it didn't matter what the source of the information was. If it was true and verifiable, then they would publish it.
And in the public interest. There were some checks on, just leaking private information about private people that's not in the public interest is different. But
they all ran the Podesta stuff.
Right.
But then when it came to the Hunter thing, a lot of them were like,
Well, it took a year and a half and now it's legitimate. Now you can discuss it. Now it's substantially verified. It's been verified over and over again that it's real information, even if the origins of it are still somewhat dubious. Although how it was presented is still the most plausible argument for how the information gets. There was a laptop repair store. Nobody's come up with a more plausible.
His signature's on there.
What else can you say?
He's never denied it.
Yeah. So RIP Disinformation Board. We hardly knew ye, but good night. Go gently into that good night or whatnot. But I'm looking forward to your radar coming up next, Ryan.